Okay, so now moving on here to Russia and Ukraine. I know we're covering a lot of ground here, and you've got a huge charge from President Trump here as you are leading these negotiations worldwide. But the Russia and Ukraine, they've started this like 3-day ceasefire thing right now. You guys have been having conversations with both sides. They seem to be productive. We keep seeing movement on this stuff. How do we get both Zelensky and Putin in a room together to hash this out? Because they're all kind of saying similar stuff here, at least publicly. So is that the next stage here? Get the two leaders in a room together? Or?
Look, the president has said, and we believe in what he said, it's a stupid war. It didn't need to happen. It would not have happened if there wasn't a false election and he was president. And so I think that we have to put everybody in a room. Solutions work when there's direct talks. We need to get the Ukrainians and the Russians at the same table. Now, this has been a vicious war, so they don't like each other. We have to change that. We have to get everybody thinking that the responsible way to address a diplomatic solution, if that's what you want, if you, Russia, want that, if you believe in the upsides for your society of ending this war, and you, Ukraine, want it too, we need to get you physically into a room, and I've offered to go spend as much time as they want, mediate that. And what we're suggesting is direct talks between the two parties. Sooner rather than later, the president has issued an ultimatum to both sides that without those direct talks, and if they don't occur quickly, then he believes that the United States ought to step back from this conflict, whatever that means, and just not be involved. This is something that we want to mediate. It's not our war. We didn't start the war, but we want to help to end it. And the way that that happens is a ceasefire where everybody stops the violence and we spend a bit of time together making sure that we can deal with the major issues here. And I think that we can. I think the major issues here are the regions, it's the nuclear plant, it's how the Ukrainians are able to use the Dnieper River and get out to the ocean. There's a lot. There are things here that I don't believe are going to be difficult to solve if we get the parties to the table. They're talking to each other. We're narrowing issues between them, and then we're coming up with compromises and creative solutions to address each of their concerns. We physically get that accomplished, and I think hopefully we'll have some good news soon. We physically get that accomplished. We have, in my view, a strong chance of getting an end to this conflict.
Right, so you've been in the room with Vladimir Putin. You met with him face to face. What was he like in person? What was that meeting like? What were the demands that he had? What were the terms that he has for ending this thing? Talk to us about their side, and then we'll get into the Ukrainian side.
Yeah, well, I've talked to both, on both sides, because how can you be involved in mediating or crafting solutions unless you're talking to everybody? So I've talked to Andrei Yermak, I've talked to President Zelensky, I've talked to their defense minister, Mr. Umerov. We have we have positive discussions, positive relationships. I've talked to all the national security advisors who are involved in this, from England, from France, from Germany, from Italy, and I've talked to President Putin. There is no deal without President Putin's sign-off. He is the leader of the Russian Federation, so the notion that talking to President Putin is somehow, people are against, I don't understand that logic. We need to talk to any stakeholders in this conflict. We have to have a conversation with them, and we can't accept another person's version for what they think. We have to hear it for ourselves. That's how you get to a solution. You put yourself in their shoes and you understand what they need, and now can we accommodate that? Can we effect those sorts of compromises? And that happens from knowing the other person. Those are the assessments that the president has asked people like me to make on his behalf, because he has to be the ultimate decision maker.
So what are the major sticking points that are left between the two sides here, right? Like, I know we're talking about a huge war that's very expensive, very deadly, but from what I understand, like, again, it really doesn't seem like there's that much that can't be solved here. So what are the major sticking points between the two sides?
Well, you're right. I think that we've done a lot to narrow the issues. I think the major sticking points are down to the 5 regions. Mm-hmm. Russia has control, overwhelming control of 2 of those regions. The Ukrainians have some degree of control over 3 other regions, and so it's about how we're going to assess. There's a difference between where the battle lines are, where the troops are, and the administrative lines, and so we're in a conversation with both sides informally. We want to be direct and at the bargaining table directly, but we're in a conversation around what you would accept Russia in some of these areas. Would you retreat back behind certain administrative lines? The same thing with the Ukrainians. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant is a big part of this discussion because it's a little bit of a crown jewel. And yet it's been closed, and we need to reopen that because it delivers a lot of electricity into some of the cities in Kiev. So these are sort of the issues: how Ukraine is going to access the water and get their goods to the marketplace. So, but I think part of the problem is that we haven't been able to get both parties to sit at the table together.
Right. And do you think that moment is possible here in the near future, that we could see a summit that you're helping mediate between President Zelensky and President Putin? I mean, is that doable?
Like, I hope so. And I think it's entirely possible. I think if the U.S. pulls back from this conflict, in other words, doesn't want to be involved with it, says it's not my war, I've tried to do my best, I think that's a bad result for everybody. It's bad for the Europeans. It's bad for the Ukrainians. I don't think it's good for the Russians. I think the Russians actually do want a peaceful settlement, and both sides are trying to figure out what that means for them. Our job is to put them in a room together and to show them that the alternatives to a peaceful resolution here are bad for everybody. That's our job.